Hey everyone, it's Kep, and I know it has been a while. Um, if you don't care about any of this, I will have a time marker where the actual Oberon video starts and everything about that and all the cool builds I have. But if you've been wondering where I've been, or you have noticed a significant lack of activity, I'm going to explain it all to you. I'm gonna run around in the simulacrum, like how you do when you're talking to your friends in the orbiter or something like that at like 12 a.m. is you're just doing all the parkour and everything like that. Anyways, basically, life sucks. But it's like that meme where it's like me when I have no money and then they're crying, and then it's like me when I have a job and then they're also crying. It's it's a different kind of pain having either. But basically, I am gainfully employed, and it's a full-time job, and I gotta wake up real early for it, and it sucks, and the hours are long, but I get a 3-day weekend, and it's pretty good money. So the trade-offs are there. I'm still trying to get into it, which is why I feel like I've been so inactive lately, because it is very physically demanding. It's construction, but it's more of a um it's when you imagine construction, you imagine like bricklayers and framers and stuff like that. I don't want to explain exactly what it is because I know there's some people out there's cringe people all over the place. They're gonna judge you on what trade you're in or anything like that. We need to use our heads a lot, and it's not an electrician, and that's all you need to know. So I guess that's what you're gonna get. I don't have the energy to try and explain exactly what I do is, but I have a job, and yeah. Basically, I have just been very busy getting used to that. If you have watched any of my other channel updates, in recent time, you'll sort of, know that I've been on, like, a health journey and stuff like that. And it's, the health journey, I'm happy to, tell you, I think I've lost, like, 30 pounds, which is pretty awesome. My doctor was very impressed with that. But the other part of that health journey was me realizing like just how out of shape I was, and especially going from sitting at home all day, gaming on a monitor and making videos and 3D modeling and stuff like that, and then going from that to like 20,000 steps a day really fucking sucks, and it's not very fun. So, basically, it was kind of like an eye opener. It's like, oh man, like I really need to take myself seriously. So I've just been tired and hurting just all the time. It blows. I mean, anybody ever who's worked any kind of job understands the kind of fatigue you can get. But I think that coupled with the burnout of Warframe, but before we got the Oberon rework and Noko and the Vallis Undermind and everything like that, there was sort of this very long period of time where we were just waiting for any kind of content at all that wasn't like a live alert or anything like that. And that burnout was really starting to set in for me, especially. It happens to veteran players friggin', every other week there's the Warframe burnout. We just need our new toys to play around with. We've seen and done it all, so that's basically sort of how things have gone. But yeah, I also got a girlfriend, and that's a poetical. So I've been spending a ton and a ton of time with her, and it's just very hard to get good dedicated gaming hours when you have an entire other person that you gotta, hang out with. But, that's basically, like, super long story, kind of not that short. That is why I've been so inactive, yeah, work and wife. And I am a fat fuck, so I'm just tired all the time. But we can finally get into the Oberon build. I almost forgot to thank my Patreon members. I'm a bit of a mess today, but in the Heirloom Tomato tier, we have Wally West, Sylvie Fox, Mr. Anonymous, Guess, Astra, Ace, and Amnesty. In the Beefsteak Tomato tier, we have Rowan Maboat, Heather, Aonerd, and 10VY. And in the Cherry Tomato tier, we have Squeaky, Grug, and Aqua Regalia. Thank you guys so much. I know I haven't been very active, and it feels very hard to justify it. I do not mind at all if you wanted to unsubscribe from the Patreon or something like that, because I'm not posting. I do have plans for the channel and stuff like that. It's going slow. So your support is genuinely always appreciated, no matter what. So thank you guys very much. Anyways, we're going to get back to the video. Okay, without further ado, we are going to jump into the first build that I have. You have probably seen some sort of variation of this build, just floating around. It is kind of the quintessential, like, oh, look, you can one-shot enemy with Smite build. But this is sort of my take on it, and I do hope it's a little bit more interesting. I have sort of tried to min-max a whole lot of things here, so I think that we've got some good numbers down. However, I do need to test them on Corrupted Heavy Gunners instead of the Dracarmanic Bombards, because I actually think that the Dracarmanic Bombards are immune to radiation damage, because the status effect isn't applying when I use my Hollowed Ground. You see, when we use Hollowed Ground, they have the radiation effect. It's guaranteed, right? It's giving them it every single tick. If we summon Dracarmanic Bombards, kill these enemies right here, Dracarmanic Bombards, they just don't get it. Look, you see that? So it's very weird, and we do need that as part of the build. So really quickly, we're just going to try and reset that. Heavy Gunners. Corrupted Heavy Gunners. Okay, there we go. Yeah, these guys will get the radiation status. Anyways, the whole gameplay loop is you have Roar active, and you use your Hollowed Ground, and you just tap Smite on an enemy, and they just fall over and die. Smite will strip the armor from target, so we don't need to worry if that target is armored. And yeah, basically you can sort of just pick and choose any one of them, be like, I want this guy to die, and then you press the button and they will just fucking keel over and die. Basically that's how this build works. And it works on, you know, stuff like Thraxes as well, because it'll strip the overguard off that target. So long as they have any amount of radiation procs on them, and you have Roar active, you will be able to one-shot them. Something else important to note though is that I'm pretty sure, yeah, you do need to have the existing radiation proc on them, and then you'll be able to do it and to reach that threshold. If you were using Smite on Rhino, you can push the Roar buff like way farther. Amelistic made a video that is pretty cool on how you can one-shot Demolists and stuff like that. As far as I know, this is not enough to one-shot a Demolist, but it is enough to chunk their health really crazy. And Demolists in general are, you know, they're going to be primed up from all these different status effects when you're using your ability, and you have Roar active as well. It's not going to be hard to kill that Demolist whatsoever, especially because you have all the survivability that Oberon can now give you. But yeah, basically, it's super cool. I would like to find a different unit to test. I'll give you a demo right now. I still haven't fucking scanned any of the Grineer Demolists, which I really should do, because they're the best to test on. But I guess we'll pop one of these guys into here. I'm just gonna pop Roar, and then we're gonna use that. See, he's not going to get affected by that radiation status. And you can see over here, like, this guy is just a slugfest, right? It is quite a bit easier to use this. Oh my god. Fucking, when did they have all this HP? Oh god, maybe the attenuation change just fucked it all up. I have no idea. I have never taken that long to kill one of these guys. Anyways, this is the build. If you are interested, I'm using Firewalker here. You don't need to use Firewalker if you don't have the endo in the credits to max it out, because it is kind of a fucking expensive mod. It is purely visual, and the 4.2%, we're really not missing anything. So if you wanted to, you could use something like Mobilize. We don't need Prime Sure-Footed whatsoever because of Oberon's passive. That Righteous Negation will help us, you know, soak up damage. Even if we do get knocked down, there's a really good chance that that Vacuum is just going to pull another health orb to you as an enemy just dies around you, and you'll get that Righteous Negation again, even if you're on the ground. Plus, we also have Phoenix Renewal active, and this is just a failsafe. We're not really using this for the bleed out slow or for the healing or the armor or anything like that. Phoenix Renewal is simply just here as a failsafe to make sure that if we do go down, we will have that Phoenix Renewal. And once every 60 seconds is like very, very, very forgiving. You can die once a minute, on top of the fact that we have Brief Respite and Catalyzing Shields working on top of our Righteous Negation. That is a ton and a ton of forms of survivability already. Though it does have gaps, and if you're trying to take this to level cap, you can run into issues. You just need to play in a certain way that doesn't put you in a compromising position when you don't have your Phoenix Renewal active. But overall, we have Blind Rage, we have Transient Fortitude. Because Roar is in our 4th slot, we're using Precision Intensify, which is really nice to take advantage of. This will just boost our Roar even more because it does have the diminished damage increase. Prime Continuity is here specifically because Roar does have a bit of a short duration, and Renewal as well is a channeled ability, and channeled ability efficiency does also scale with duration, so we're losing out on efficiency by using Blind Rage, but we're gaining some of it back with Prime Continuity. And because we're using Smite a ton and a ton, we're spamming the ever-living fuck out of it with this particular build, there can be moments in time where you won't have energy, which is very, very, very rare, and only when you're in low density missions and stuff like that. So if you're trying to play Void Cascade without a Fissure buff, then you might very rarely run into energy issues. But even that said, Oberon is basically like infinite energy, specifically because of Arcane Universal Fallout. It's just so incredibly strong. But yeah, so basically 60% chance to drop a universal orb. Something really important to note about the universal orbs is they count as health and energy orbs at the same time. So if you walk into one, you'll pick up the energy side of the orb, and then the health side of the orb will turn back into energy with equilibrium, and you end up getting a ton and a ton of energy from these universal orbs. I think if there's one sitting on the ground, you can see over here, we have 105 energy, and I don't have vacuum right now. I'm gonna walk into this. We got another 105 energy from a single orb. So, you know, there's a 60% chance that when you kill an enemy, if they have 10 radiation stacks on them, that they're going to drop an orb that's going to drop 100 energy for you. And you can see over here that there's all sorts of orbs here, and we can use our abilities plenty and plenty and plenty of times. Over and over again. The nice thing about these orbs is that they count as both health and energy orbs at the same time, which means that we will get our Righteous Negation from these universal orbs, so it is just a really, really good arcane. If you ever see somebody running Oberon without this, I genuinely wish I could tell you, because Hollowed Ground makes you status immune, and it has great CC. It looks awesome, by the way, and that radiation status is really, really nice. So Oberon in general is just sort of a fan favorite if you love to just support your teammates, even if it's in little ways like giving them status immunity or letting them have a failsafe from Phoenix Renewal and everything like that. He is a really, really, really strong support Warframe right now, regardless of the bonus armor that he can give to his allies. As we know right now, armor in Warframe feels a little bit flawed, and it doesn't feel like it's doing enough in some cases, especially as we're diving deeper and deeper into higher level content. It's unfortunate to see how many Warframes are getting reworked and trying to be implemented with a ton of different armor and stuff like that, because it falls short so often. And if you want to push it to the point where it can take level cap amounts of damage, or even EDA, and sometimes like EDA and ETA, or armor tanking isn't going to work all the time for that. So if you wanted to push armor tanking to a point where it will work, you need to dedicate your entire loadout to doing that, and that really, really sucks. So I think armor right now is very flawed, which is why we're running stuff like Phoenix Renewal and Brief Respite and Catalyzing Shields, because this is going to guarantee our survival with invulnerability frames, rather than having to worry if we're going to have enough damage reduction to survive a big hit, especially from enemies like a Blitz Eximus, where even if you have an effective health pool of like 400,000, they're gonna do 600,000 damage at level 400. Like it's stuff like that, right? Righteous Negation. It also feels as though we're being pulled in different directions, because Righteous Negation gives you invulnerability, but we have the armor stack up from Renewal and the extra bonuses that we get from these other abilities. It's very weird because we're not putting all of our cards into the same basket. So it feels hard to try and justify speccing into both of them at once. You have to go all in into one of the methods. And in this case, Righteous Negation has won because Universal Fallout is just going to be infinitely better than literally any other energy generation tool in the game, because it's just so strong, having so many enemies dropping orbs like that. Anyways, I ranted way too long about that. The next build is really fun. This is sort of a take on the old like Gloom Silence meta. And that was basically, if you ran Silence with Gloom on either Banshee or Sevagoth, the slow would take the animation of them sort of like wincing in pain, and it would slow it down like a ton and a ton. It turns out that Arcane Eruption, as I mentioned earlier, will trigger off of Arcane Universal Fallout. Those Universal Orbs will count as energy pickups, and you'll get that knockdown. Now, I can't remember what the radius on Arcane Eruption is, but it's really high, and when you combine that knockdown with the slow from Gloom, they are stun locked. And we have CC from our garden, and you end up getting like these disgusting amounts of crowd control when you're combining everything. So it is really funny. You can see over here, I'm going to pop the Hallowed Ground on. Now I need to kill some enemies here to make sure that I can get these orbs up. But as you can see over here, like this is 95% slow. They're struggling to move, and now they're all knocked down. So now they're caught in this animation. So they're trying to stand up right now from using their knockdown, and it's taking forever. But now they're also in this situation where they're getting knocked down from the Universal Orb. Again, this guy's been on his feet for like the past like 2 minutes, so it is very silly. As you can see over here, they're just trying to like stand up. It's silly, and they get knocked over again, and eventually they'll just, yeah. It's super funny to watch this. The CC is great. This is really good for just locking down an entire area. If you really just want to say fuck you to any amount of enemies, just be like, you turn these two abilities on, and you, sorry, I'm going insane. Rage consumes me. If I put 3 Gardens all the way over here, like, you don't need to have the Gardens active in order to make this work. It's just nice because you get the status immunity. You just need to be killing enemies and getting these energy orbs, and they're going to spawn from fucking everywhere. As you can see, they're all over the place, and these are all big knockdowns for us. You can see enemies all the way over here are getting knocked away. It is really impressive. Arcane Eruption is a very underutilized thing. I think the only time I've actually seen it be like utilized well is with Protea as a form of passive CC, and yeah, it's just super nice. The cool thing about Smite as well is that it'll instantly strip the overguard from a target, so if there is an Xmas wandering around in a crowd that's not getting affected by your slow, you can just smite them and you'll strip the overguard immediately, and then they'll be affected by your CC. It's the same thing with Thrax units as well, so if you're running up against Dax, then you just pop that Smite, and they'll immediately just get slowed to a fucking crawl, because it's a 95% slow with this build. It is going to be like debilitating to an enemy. That is, they're never going to be able to do anything. So it is really cool. The nice part about that as well is that it really takes advantage of the Righteous Negation. Because we're taking less instances of damage, the invulnerability period after Righteous Negation goes out is not particularly long. So this just separates the amount of time it takes for enemies to damage us as well. And it means that we have more and more time to collect those health orbs as we're killing enemies to stack the Righteous Negation up. So this makes you really hard to kill. This is probably my favorite setup for running, you know, public missions if you're trying to help enemy players. Like, genuinely, these guys are just not going to be able to move at all as we're running around here, and we're going to be generating orbs for them. They're going to be knocked down constantly. If you do have Warframes that are relying on finishers, if you wanted to do some finisher builds or anything like that, this is a really good way of having a massive AoE like finisher farm if you wanted to do something like that. So there's a ton of different things that you could do with a build like this, but it's just generally really fun because it'll just lock an entire area down. As you can see over here, like, I've been Immortal for the past like however long. Like, they're not ever going to be a threat in this state, especially if we keep the carpet on, which will just keep them fed rad procs. They're going to be fighting amongst themselves at fucking, you know, 5% speed, so it's pretty cool. The last build that we have for Oberon is this Omamori build over here. This is sort of a blend between Roar Smite and Gloom CC. The thing is, though, is that we've subsumed over renewal for Omamori. Now, if you've seen my video about this ability, you'll know that I'm kind of a friggin' fan. Omamori is great because it just, you can turn into Revenant. You just turn your brain off and you will never take damage. Thank you so much to Ari in my Discord because they figured out that Omamori actually goes on top of the Righteous Damage negation from Oberon's passive, which means that you will take Omamori damage first before you take Righteous Negation damage, which means that if Omamori fails to block damage, it will consume a Righteous Negation charge. And then in that invulnerability period, we're not taking damage, Omamori can block damage again and trigger its invulnerability period again. So it is really, really stupid, and it will keep sort of shuffling down the line as you go through the list. And this is just so, so impressive. So if I get my Righteous Negation all the way stacked up, and I use my Omamori, I'm just going to spawn these enemies over here. You're going to see over here, they're going to be damaging me. I'm also going to be knocking them down, which is really, really nice. Whoopsies, there we go. I need to be playing with vacuum so I can get the damage negation, or the righteous negation. As you can see over here, Omamori will block that. You need to have vacuum on so you can keep pulling those orbs to you. And moving around definitely does help. But overall, it is very, very nice. You could also slot in catalyzing shields into one of these parts of the build over here. We're not super worried about range, but catalyzing shields will help as your shields will regenerate in the background, but it doesn't do too much unless you have those 2 shield regen delay mods. But I know it seems a little bit weak right now because we don't have a Sentinel pulling in orbs, and we also are not sort of in a realistic battle situation, but we are able to separate damage a ton and a ton when we're using this ability. And you'll see over here now that we sort of have this going, they're going to be CC'd and stuff like that, and you're going to see over here we have all 3 stacks of Righteous Negation. Omamori just blocked damage for us. Omamori blocked damage again, and you can see over here now that it's not, you know, all 20 Corrupted Heavy Gunners shooting at you at once, you are not going to take any damage. So I can just sort of sit here and let Omamori soak up damage for me. You can see Righteous Negation is not being drained at the same time that the Omamori stack is, which is really, really nice, as you can see. So when Omamori does block damage, it's good, and then when it doesn't block damage, the Righteous Negation gets consumed, and this just pulls an orb to me. So I can really, really just sit in this area and do a whole lot of nothing, if I so please, which is very, very cool. This build is also really fun, very good for level cap on this one, because you are just so hard to put down, which is the fun part. But yeah, all of these builds are uniquely interesting, and they all do different things. So if you wanted to play Oberon in 3 different ways, you certainly can. This one is sort of the tank of the bunch. You're gonna outlive basically everybody on your team when you're running this. You're essentially Revenant, which I think is really, really funny. I forgot to go over the build really briefly over here, but we do have Hallowed Reckoning specifically because it gives a boost in the range of Reckoning over here. This is just going to help us generate as many health orbs as possible, even though we do get the universal orbs from Hallowed Ground. This will make it so that we get even more, and the range buff from Hallowed Reckoning is really, really nice. That 40% range is going to give us a 41 meter Reckoning, which is so far. We're not really caring about the damage it's doing or the armor increase. If there is somebody on your team who benefits from armor, then it's going to be really nice for them, but we won't be using that because we're not going to be taking damage regardless. So this is the hiccup. This is the layout for the Archon charts over here. We just have 4 of the ability radiation damage. Genuinely, you don't need any of these unless you're trying to run the Roar Smite build, because this will start doing a lot of damage to enemies, especially like priority targets, enemies that do have damage attenuation, stuff like that. I haven't been able to properly test it on a Demolist, I think because Oberon has access to the 75% damage instead of the 50% cap damage from Smite, I do think it outweighs the damage bonus loss from Roar. It sort of inserts itself back into the equation. So I think something like this would probably be able to one-shot a Demolist, but I haven't tested it as of right now. But it will, without a doubt, be able to one-shot Thrax units. And so if you're going to be running Void Cascade, or it'll one-shot anything, right? So long as they have a radiation proc, and even when they don't have a radiation proc, sometimes Roar's just enough to push it over that edge. So yeah, very, very fun. I think I like Roar a lot, very ironically, even though I'm, you know, haha, meta bad or anything like that. I do think that it is very funny being able to just point your finger at a target and be like, no, you will go. But yeah, that's basically the 3 Oberon builds that I have. I probably could go into a mod mission and show you how it works and everything like that. But at the end of the day, meh. If I am able to obtain any footage of Fisher runs for Void Cascade, I will love to take Oberon to level cap, especially because he makes the game very comfortable for everybody else. And having something like Phoenix Renewal for an entire team in affinity range on level cap is very, very freaking nice. So it is definitely going to be a nice and smooth run when your teammates are getting a damage buff from Roar, and they're getting, you know, Immortality from Phoenix Renewal, and they're getting your Righteous Negation, and they're getting Energy Orbs from your Universal Fallout. So you're providing a lot to a team. Just as one Warframe, which is why I think that Oberon right now is probably one of the best support Warframes. And I feel like the fact that Righteous Negation applies to your allies and your Sentinel, by the way, is very, very silly. Something I would like to comment on is my Sentinel, because this is actually really, really nice. Specifically because we have this mod over here, Restorative Bond. Because these Universal Orbs count as health orbs, we're able to regenerate our Sentinel so fast. And the best part is that most of the time your Sentinel will die from chip damage from an Xmas unit or something like that. The Righteous Negation will basically make that whatever proc that normally kills a Sentinel, like if your Sentinel gets a heat proc from an Xmas or something like that, the Righteous Negation will stop that from happening. It will protect them, and if they do ever die, which is very, very hard already with the Righteous Negation, we have Restorative Bond and Prime Regen, and, you know, we have our Momentous Bond and everything like that sort of coming into here. So our Sentinel will never ever die, which is really nice because we can come over here to our Prime Laser Rifle and we have 7 different status effects, but mainly we have Viral and we have Radiation. So that one stack of Viral is going to be a pretty strong damage multiplier towards our Smite. And that Radiation is going to fulfill the requirement of having a Radiation status on a target. So simply enemies being near your Doriga will prime them with those 2 status effects, and it will make your Smite on the Roar build do even more damage. And it will apply extra damage to enemies for that Smite with the other versions of the build as well, if they do get that Radiation status. So you don't just need to run up and put your carpet down if you want to get the Rad status, because this particular build with Doriga is able to shock them really, really easily. So it's a 7 meter, no, it's a 10 meter, you know, area that they get shocked with Doriga. But if we walk all the way over here and pop our Roar, you can see simply just getting shocked by Doriga is enough for them to die. So that's 1.6 million damage from that, right? 1.5 million, 1.1, and simply because Doriga is just here, and our Sentinel has this Righteous Damage Negation, constantly proccing status effects and stuff like that, so it is really, really nice to run this with Doriga. And you are also getting even more energy, not energy, but health orb generation because of the other mods that we have on the Sentinel, which I really quickly am going to give the name. Give me a second here. It is Synth deconstruct. There we go. Enemies that are injured by companions have a 25% chance to drop a health orb. So these two go hand in hand already. By themselves, this is very, very strong, right? Because if any enemies are zapped by your arc coil, then these two will sort of act hand in hand. But the fact that we have so much health orb generation from Hallowed Ground is going to make it even stronger. So your Sentinel will never die. You'll always get this priming. They'll always have rad procs on them. The weapon mod setup for the Sentinel as well has heat, so you're making them vulnerable to health damage, you're stripping their armor partially, and you're giving them the radiation status so they're confused. It is a ton and a ton of value. Typically, I will run Doriga with cold, and corrosive, which is really, really nice because it slows them down. But this is also really good as a damage bonus. So even though we're getting one stack of viral, it is definitely going to help us a lot because we're running in percentage base damage, and they love multipliers. But yeah, that's basically the Oberon build, and I hope you guys enjoyed them. I really like the Roar one, surprisingly. And yeah, peep the fashion. I don't know about you, but I fuck with this Ferric skin so much. The Destrier helmet is just beautiful. Rakao is always going to be a talented individual. But yeah, these are my colors. Anyways, yeah, little life update in the start of the video. Yeah, thank you so much for watching, and I think I probably will not cover Noko, because there's been so many videos already that have covered him, and I'm gonna be honest, I'm not like super interested in his playstyle. He feels very much so like Corvex, but a lot better. Corvex should have been able to achieve Noko levels of damage and survivability and stuff like that. So we clearly know who the favorite is of the bunch, but they play very similarly, and I'm just not interested in that playstyle. It's too much of a hassle to do things. You know, call me old-fashioned. But anyways, I hope you guys have a lovely day, and those are my dubious Oberon builds. And goodbye.